The Dancing Plague is one of history's strangest mysteries, an event that, even after more than 500 years, nobody can fully explain. Was it a disease? A psychological phenomenon? A curse? Or something far darker? It's not usual when science couldn't give us a clear answer. But this case is different. More than 500 years later, historians, psychologists, and scientists still can't fully explain what happened, and that's what makes it so disturbing. It was a quiet afternoon in the city of Strasbourg. Although Strasbourg is now part of France, in 1518 it was actually a city of the Holy Roman Empire, a time of political unrest, disease, and deep religious beliefs. Strasbourg was a wealthy trading city because it sat on the Rhine River, one of Europe's most important trade routes. Europe was a very different place at the time kingdoms rose and fell. Disease was everywhere, and people believed that almost everything, from sickness to bad harvests, could be a sign from God. Its streets were filled with merchants, churches, and busy markets. Yet behind the prosperity, people were struggling through famine, disease, and uncertainty. No one could have imagined that this ordinary city was about to become the center of one of the strangest mysteries in human history. So, what's with this painting? Why are these people dancing? And why has nobody been able to explain what really happened? Well, it all began with one woman. On a warm summer day in July 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea, a German housewife, stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and began to dance. Although it's not weird now to dance in this century, it was unusual back then. A lot of bystanders thought she lost her mind and just carried on with their day, not expecting much of her. But what makes it so unusual is that she never stopped. Hours passed, and she keeps dancing to nothing. Her feet started to bruise, but not one man can do anything to stop her. Everyone thought maybe she will stop by the next morning, but she didn't. And over the next few days, something even stranger happened. One by one, more people began to join her. Without warning, without explanation, dozens of men and women started dancing the same way, and before long, the streets of Strasbourg were crowded by people dancing. To understand why people reacted the way they did, you first have to understand what Strasbourg was like in 1518. The city acted as a crossroads for Europe. Merchants from across the continent passed through Strasbourg every day, bringing valuable goods, new ideas, and sometimes deadly diseases. Back then, outbreaks were common. Entire villages could be devastated by disease, and people had little understanding of how illnesses spread. Living in constant fear of the next epidemic was simply part of everyday life. Because of that, many historians believe whatever happened in Strasbourg may have been some kind of disease that spread from person to person. But medicine wasn't the only explanation people believed in. In the 16th century, witchcraft, curses, and the supernatural were considered very real. When something couldn't be explained, many believed it was the work of dark magic, an evil spirit, or even a punishment from God. So as more and more people began dancing uncontrollably, the city was left with terrifying possibilities. Is this another disease outbreak, or some kind of dark magic? Whatever happened to Frau Troffea spread quickly. Within weeks, an estimated 400 people had joined the strange outbreak. None of them wanted to dance, yet somehow they found themselves unwillingly dancing alongside everyone else, as if they had completely lost control of their own bodies. It was called the dance mania at the time. The streets that were once filled with merchants and traders were now crowded with exhausted men and women dancing uncontrollably, their feet bruising, screaming in pain, begging for help, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't stop. You have to keep in mind, the event takes place during summer, so being outside for even a few hours in the temperature is unbearable. Yet these people wasn't just standing, they were dancing. Before long, many began collapsing from dehydration, exhaustion, and severe physical strain. According to historical accounts, some reportedly suffered heart attacks or strokes, while others simply died from pushing their bodies far beyond their limits. It was later reported that as many as 15 people a day were dying from dancing during the dance mania. It might sound unbelievable today, a mysterious illness that made people dance uncontrollably. But back then, diseases were poorly understood, and there were illnesses that could affect the body in strange ways. One example was Sydenham's chorea, a condition that could cause sudden, involuntary movements and uncontrollable jerking of the body. So to the people of 1518, the idea of a sickness causing strange movements wasn't impossible. As the number of dancers continued to rise, fear spread throughout Strasbourg. People had no idea what they were dealing with. so the city turned to its physicians for answers. The city council started to panic. With more and more people collapsing every day, they knew they had to do something before the entire city fell into chaos. Desperate for answers, they turned to Strasbourg's physicians, the closest thing they had to medical experts. After examining the victims, the doctors came to a conclusion that sounds unbelievable today. The doctors believed the victims were suffering from something called hot blood. According to medieval medicine, the body contained different humors, and too much hot blood could supposedly make a person restless and uncontrollably active. So they came to a shocking conclusion. The dancers shouldn't be stopped. They should be allowed to dance until the illness left their bodies. In other words, if they wanted to dance, they should keep dancing. So that's exactly what the city allowed. To us now, it sounds completely absurd. But in 1518, it was considered a legitimate medical treatment, so the city acted on their advice. They encouraged them to keep going. The city council cleared parts of the marketplace and built wooden stages for the dancers. Musicians were hired to play day and night. Professional dancers were even brought in, not to entertain the crowd, but to keep the victims moving, believing it would help them recover. It sounded like the perfect solution. Instead, it only made things worse. The exact opposite happened. The music did nothing except encouraging even more people to join. The outbreak grew larger. And of course, when you play a loud music at the center of the city, more people start to come and see what was going on. What the council thought was the solution only poured more fuel on the fire. As musicians continued to play and the dancers refused to stop, the number of victims kept growing with no intention in stopping. By now, it's obvious whatever is happening shows no sign in slowing down. And now, Strasbourg was running out of answers. With medicine failing before their eyes, they have to act fast. While physician and science couldn't give them an answer, there was only one place left to turn: the church. If medicine couldn't stop it, maybe God could, since this wasn't the first time Europe had witnessed something like this. More than a century earlier, in 1374, another wave of uncontrollable dancing had swept across parts of Europe. Back then, nobody understood what caused it. Instead, many believed the victims had been cursed or punished by God. So, when Strasbourg faced the same nightmare in 1518, the city once again turned to religion, hoping faith could succeed where medicine had failed. So the remaining victims were loaded onto wagons and taken to the shrine of St. Vitus in the nearby town of Saverne. According to Christian tradition, Vitus was only a young boy when he converted to Christianity. At a time when Christians were being heavily persecuted by the Roman Empire, he refused to renounce his faith, even after repeated threats. He was arrested, tortured, and ordered to worship the Roman gods. He refused. As punishment, some legends claim he was thrown into a boiling cauldron of tar, yet survived unharmed. Others say he was fed to lions, but instead of attacking him, the animals refused to touch him. Over the centuries, stories about his unwavering faith spread throughout Europe, and he was eventually recognized as a saint. People began praying to St. Vitus for protection against nervous disorders, seizures, and unexplained illnesses involving uncontrollable movement. By the Middle Ages, many believed he had power over a strange affliction that became known as St. Vitus dance. So, when the people of Strasbourg saw hundreds dancing against their own will, they believed only St. Vitus could save them. While they were waiting for an answer, the city council abandoned its original plan and banned all public dancing and music throughout Strasbourg. Anyone that got caught would be fined minimum of 30 coins per person. No festivals, no celebrations, no musicians. Anything that could encourage dancing was immediately shut down. But at the time, the only music that available was the string music for weddings, but no drums were allowed, since the physician believed drums is what been triggering this weird epidemic. As the wagons arrived at the church, the priests welcomed the victims and began a series of religious rituals. Prayers were offered, masses were held. Some historical accounts even describe the dancers wearing red shoes marked with the sign of the cross, while priests blessed them with holy water and pleaded with St. Vitus to lift the curse. And then, something remarkable happened. Whether it was the power of faith or simply the passage of time, the strange affliction slowly began to fade. One by one, the dancers started to regain control of their bodies, and the dancing mania that had terrified Strasbourg for weeks finally came to an end. Within weeks, the strange epidemic that had gripped Strasbourg had vanished almost as suddenly as it had appeared. No medicine had cured it, no one had discovered what caused it, and more than 5 centuries later, we still don't know why it happened.